Welcome to Radio Free Will. I'm your host, George McCullough, and we're coming at you live and direct from Griggstown, New Jersey. This is a podcast for sovereign people. And with us today is artist, activist, and philosopher Michelle Mockers. Michelle, how are you?
Very well, George, very well.
We're going to continue with our discussions of the general rules to make this a happy planet. But before we go on with that, I want to ask if anybody was in the New Jersey area this morning. My wife and I saw military jets flying over top. They were making a hell of a lot of noise, scaring all the beautiful birds we got in our backyard. Unfortunately, I couldn't see them too well because we have a lot of trees, but you could certainly hear them. It was a hell of a noise, and if anybody has any idea of what they were doing in this area, we'd love to know. So you can write us at info@Radio Free Will, and you know?
Yeah, I'm next door Griggstown.
Hold on, we're getting a news report.
Yeah, I'm next door Griggstown.
Mm-hmm.
Someone wrote in, and then the answer came. Trump is in Bedminster, and New Jersey's a no-fly zone from last night, and apparently, just a private plane who didn't know, they brought in F-16s to make that private plane land.
Okay, so the news flash is that Trump was in the area, and it was a no-fly zone, and I guess the military has to patrol the area.
A plane came in. A private plane flew into the night, or a plane was in the no-fly zone. They had to get rid of it.
A private plane came into the no-fly zone. So that's it. If anybody has any comments on that or any other information, please email us in info at radiofreewill.org. So, Michelle.
Yes.
How are you doing today?
Not too bad, not too bad. Enough, I believe, to answer you.
We're starting to heat up with the presidential campaign. We had the second series of Democratic debates this week. I don't know how many people watched because it was over 2 nights and it must have been 6 hours long. But it was very interesting. And Michelle, do you have any comments? Or did you watch?
No, I didn't know. You know my age, so sometimes I'm obliged to take a little, I should say, silent and sleep or whatever. Huh? So I didn't watch that, but I am used with, I know exactly, how it goes. It goes exactly in the direction of what we are always talking about. Means we are not in a democracy. It's something else.
I agree with you, and certainly the debates can put you to sleep for a little while.
I know. They can last forever.
But that leads us right into the third general rule of the positive dialectic.
What is the general rule?
The third is elections should be publicly funded.
Exactly. The elections, when you have elections, number one, they're not free. Here, you practically can vote only for the Democrat or the Republicans. The rest of the parties do not exist, practically. They do not exist. And they are the only one with the money. An election where you can put a lot of money in in one of the cooker, that's not democracy. Democracy has to be completely neutral. Means no private funding and possibility for all existing party to present themselves with exactly the same possibilities that the other party, that the big parties. So we are very, very, very far from that. We are on a private, I should say, monopolization of the election by the Republicans and the Democrats, and monopolization of the money. We are not anymore, I use a big word, we are not anymore in a democracy, but in a plutocracy. It's the money who makes over the elections.
If I remember correctly, Hillary Clinton spent or raised almost $1 billion.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I should say that is, you know what is, for example, I know France better than our country, as I am basically born in France. The election was that every party had the same advertising for everyone, no specialty for and free by the government, with one condition, that to be able to participate, you have to have at least, I don't remember, I believe it was 6% of the votes. At 6% of the votes, you had nothing to pay. The government was paying. Under 6%, you were obliged to reimburse the government. And it's where the communists became absolutely crazy, because before the war, the last election before the war was 25% of communism in France. 25%, which is an enormous number of communists. And the last one was 3.5%, and they were obliged to pay, and they were absolutely crazy.
Why do you think the Communist Party had such a falling out with the French people?
Because the Communist Party went to absolutely nothing. You know, you cannot say that Stalin gave the very good example during the war. In fact, in the beginning of World War II, Stalin didn't go to help the Allies, but to defend the communism of Russia. That was, after that, it became more and more to help the Allies, but in the beginning, he was fighting to defend communism in Russia. So, communism, you know, one smart thing that did happen was the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan was not...
By the United States?
Yeah, by the United States. Was not to really, I don't believe, help the cities which were flat down, but in cities flat down, the communists has a very nice field of talking. You rebuild the cities, and the communists are not necessary. And the Marshall Plan was, in fact, basically an anti-communist plan.
Did the Russians help with the rebuilding of
No.
Europe?
The Russians rebuilt Russia.
Yeah, well, they had a lot to rebuild, though, too.
Yeah, they were to rebuild, but, you know, Napoleon went to Moscow when Hitler was not able to go inside Moscow. Napoleon went inside Moscow for his defeat, okay, but he went inside Moscow. The other one was not able to do it. They
Right.
were stopped by the rain, and after that the freezing temperature, and they were not equipped for that, and they did suffer a lot. You know what it is when it's freezing. Go to make your natural needs. You cannot. No, I'm serious. I'm serious, because you even cannot do that, my dear. You cannot do that. You would die and trying to do it.
And a lot of people did.
Oh, absolutely.
Even during World War II.
Oh no, absolutely. That what stopped the German army. The weather, that all of a sudden it was rain, and just above the rain, freezing, and they were not equipped. They were not equipped. They were supposed to be in Moscow. They were not equipped for that. But if you look at what Hitler did in Russia, he went, let's say, right and left, and send division back to Russia. He didn't go straight to Moscow. And when he went to try to Moscow, it was too late.
Nobody warned him. Well, we don't know if anybody warned him or not, but
No, you know.
a bad decision. I hear the bad decision was not even to pull back, I suppose.
No, but plus Hitler was a man that even his generals could not disagree with him, because he had that very special guards that even if you were a general, you were dead if you were disagreeing with Hitler, and he knew it, and no one of them gave up voluntarily, you know. So when you are Hitler, hey.
Well, I know we're diverging a little bit off of elections, but just to keep on what you're talking about, do you think there should be a Marshall Plan for other countries around the world? Say a Marshall Plan for Latin America, so immigrants don't feel the need to come to the United States for some relief, but we would offer relief in their home
Yeah,
countries.
but then you are talking about my whole program means that, you know, you have to help the people who need help. And as long as we will not do that, there will be problem and trouble on the world, you know. The thing is that the world, every country fight for itself. Doesn't help the next country. We are the strongest, we are the one, we impose our will to all the others without taking care of what the others want or needs or whatever. We want to follow our own plans. Mr. Trump he's ready to be mad at everybody because he's just Mr. Trump.
And do you think that is the role of the United States or just in humanity in general?
It's always the same thing, my dear. Someone or one or two or three give the example and the other follows. If nobody starts, and the United States have the responsibility that they proclaim since so many years that they are the strongest, the richest, the whatever it is. So they have the one who have to give the best example of what we are talking about. So give the best example and the other will follow.
So you do agree that the United States should help some of these countries financially,
Yes, financially, materially, intellectually,
spiritually?
spiritually, by all means, you know. You must accept the way of thinking of other people. If they don't have your religion, that doesn't matter. That's not the problem. The problem is that you must help the people who need help. And that will bring peace on earth. Because the people who are starving, they are ready to a lot of things, you know, even the worst, eventually.
Yeah, and you can't blame people if they're starving.
No, I always say, and I always write, you kill for a piece of bread, my dear. You can kill for a piece of bread. I mean, people can kill for a piece of bread. So give a piece of bread.
Yeah.
That's it.
I agree with you. I think it's our responsibility as human beings to take care of one another. We're all one.
As long as we will not be able to get in peace with other people, economically, commercially speaking, that's on the side, you know. The main thing is to have the will to help the others, and we don't have the will to help the others right now.
But we claim that we do.
Oh,
I mean,
that we do,
The
but
United States is in the Middle East, fighting wars, claiming that we're there to help people.
but by war.
Do you believe that?
No. No, you don't help anyone with a gun. Absolutely not. That's not true. You help anyone by giving a piece of bread and a kiss, and that's it.
I can agree with you. There is certainly a lot of talk about immigration and stuff like that during the debates, and there's only one or two candidates that actually hint at some of the stuff that you're talking about. And I think it's a real shame. It's probably a lot cheaper to help another country out than to go to war against it. The economic development is much better. But I think, as both you and I agree, that it's probably the defense contractors, the military-industrial complex, that is really pushing for war all over the place.
Of course, because you make money.
Yeah.
If you build a gun, a big gun, the biggest the gun, the biggest the money that you can put in your pocket if you are an investor in armaments. That is what is absolutely wrong, my dear, is that money can go for when you look at the budget of the United States, more than half the budget goes just for the army. For what?
$780 billion this year.
Yeah, but
The
you know
budget
what?
was just
You know
passed.
what is the army always said that. You know what is the army? Once I saw a file of truck empty with running engines. So I was so surprised that I asked an officer, say, what's wrong with those trucks? What goes with those trucks? He said, come on, you don't know? If we don't spend the gas, the same amount of gas this month, next month we will not have the same amount of gas. So that is the army, my dear. That is basically the army. And the army, this morning, that guy was making a lot of noise, making everybody afraid because the F-16 or something like that went a little too low, you know. And the pilot enjoyed it, you can be sure of that, to afraid the people on the ground. They don't have the occasion to do that.
I got to say, sometimes I'm guilty of doing something like your example. I'll go into a restaurant, they serve the bread in the beginning, and I'll eat it all up so they make sure they can bring some more bread to me.
Yeah, but of course, but you know, and it's where the world is absolutely upside down. Everyone for himself, everyone, and nations are artificial things, and everyone for himself, everyone fighting the others. We don't have the same religion, we don't have the same economy, we fight. We fight to have it cheapest and so on. So the example of the why did we go to China? Tell me why the American went to China to have everything made in China. Every time I buy something, a pair of shoes, I look at it, made in China. Why? Why not make in America? Because, my dear, you were making more money having made in China than in America, and that's it. That is absolutely stupid. And now we have a problem, of course, with China. You could be sure that there would be a problem at the end of that. You know, but it's always the same bluff, the same, you know, lesson China. Why is that 5.99 instead of 6? 5.99 is 6, but why not 6.00? Because 6 is not 5, and the first thing that you look at is 5. You forget the 99. It's the same price as 6. So that's a permanent bluff. Everything is built like that. Last time I bought a computer, the guy told me, oh, in 2 years, yours will be a dinosaur.
Yeah, that's true.
And it will be a dinosaur. Of course it will be a dinosaur, because they make in purpose that it is a dinosaur in 2 years. Like that, I buy a new computer. Absolutely useless, but new computer.
Well, in the positive dialectic, do you have room for nations, or nations are gone? It's just one, the world.
No. There are two things which are completely different. The artificial frontier, based by a guy who is stronger than the others, that's one thing. But basically all nations have a personality. The music of the Alps is not the music of South America. So you must preserve all the originality, all the personality of people. Do not try to make them all on the same level. You must preserve absolutely their personality.
So you want to preserve culture.
Preserve their culture, absolutely preserve their culture. To help a country doesn't say that you must ask that country to change everything in your favor, being what you, not at all. Those countries should keep, because that is essential, that makes the diversity of humanity. Otherwise it will be absolutely boring, my dear. Everywhere the same, it will be boring. So you must, and beside that, not only that, but living their personality, they want eventually live their personal personality. So you must keep the originality of countries what they are. That doesn't.
But countries, that means borders, or there's
mean
freedom of travel, or what?
Freedom of travel?
Yeah.
Yeah, freedom of travel. You should be able to travel everywhere.
All right, but I can agree with preserving culture and all of that, but isn't it natural evolution that we're just, human beings are just going to all be this big melting pot, and it's all
My
gonna.
dear, we can have something in common and we can have something personal. We could have in common all the nations. We could have an economy, for example, which would be an economy that can apply to all the countries together. They could exchange whatever it is. That is one thing. And it's something completely different from the personality, for example, of music. You don't want all the world play the same music. When you have some very, very specific music from this or that part of the world, and keep that. But that doesn't mean that at the same time you cannot give, for example, some bread to the musician. Why not? But keep the musician with his music.
Well, if we preserve cultures, the United States seems to have a culture of violence. What do we do with that? Do we recognize that culture of violence, or do we try to?
What do we call by culture, my dear? That's exactly what we have to define culture.
Well, it's in all the movies. It's in all the art. Every political speech seems to include some kind of beating fan the flames of war.
Well, my dear, that's where the people who are for peace must do in such a way that instead of singing about war, they will sing about peace.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I mean, look at the football game. The beginning of all the football games is the military comes out. You have the jets flying over top of the stadium. It's a bizarre culture in the United States.
Yeah, but that is part of the cultivated culture of the United States, which is very materialistic, right? Absolutely materialistic.
Very materialistic. The history of the country is built on violence.
Yeah, but it's where we have to learn. We have to learn not to be violent and to exchange with other countries, and
not to make the United States a scapegoat. Europe. It's always wars in Europe. It seems to have calmed down since World War II, but there still was the war in Yugoslavia or Serbia, Croatia,
yeah, but
Ukraine.
It's because all the after World War I, you had the Society of Nations, if you remember. It didn't last.
Yeah, that was the Woodrow
It didn't last.
Wilson.
When you make, for example, one of the biggest mistakes for all over the centuries, when you beat a country, we beat Germany in World War I. We impose upon Germany such a burden of debts that they could not pay. They could not exist. The Republic of Weimar was out of money, and so a guy like Hitler comes in and take over the deal. Hey, I give you work.
And do you see that same thing happening in the United States? Because we're doing it to ourselves. We're in such debt. There's no way we're going to be able to pay.
No, of course.
Eventually, China is going to say we want our money.
Of course. So I say, why did we go to China? Why now we are protesting against China? Hey, we went over there. Who obliged the big companies to have a big house in China?
No,
there?
they were encouraged to go over.
Just for the money, my dear. And it's where we must change the policy, not just for the money. As long as it is for the money, forget it. We are doomed.
Yeah, you hear all this talk about sustainability and stuff like that. If you can't make the things that your community needs in your own community, that's not sustainability. Right?
Listen, dear. At the end of World War II, what was the situation? The America who didn't want to go to war, by the way. They didn't want that.
I think
they were obliged to go to war.
I think they did want to go to war. I think they wanted to make sure that all the European nations beat themselves down a little bit before they jumped in.
Yeah. What did we sell to Mr. Churchill? Some old church from some vessels from the World War One. So be nice with that. Huh? Come on. So we, in fact, I don't even know exactly what we are dealing with right now, because it's so it has always been the same thing. If you look through history, if you look at all the wars, some of the wars which had a ridicule pretext, even World War One has a ridicule pretext. Sarajevo was a ridicule pretext, absolutely. And at the end of that war, we imposed upon the guy who lost such a condition that he could not survive with those conditions. And what happens? And Hitler saying, "I'll make you survive."
And what was the point of World War One and World War Two? Was it over resources, or was it
Well,
to beat off the monarchies?
World War II, Hitler had the hope to seize as much as Europe as possible, to have all the free new materials, all the minerals and all that. Well, did he want to Russia to have minerals? Not for another reason, not against communism. The real reason was he wanted to seize all the materials available for Germany in Russia. That was the real reason. Not not the anti-communist. He has signed 1 year earlier. He has signed a treaty with the communists.
And why was France in the Far East? You've mentioned this before in the podcasts. Rubber, right?
Robert.
No, rubber, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they want to corner the rubber market or something like that in Vietnam? And
Yeah, when French went to Vietnam, rubber, exactly, because the trees were producing rubber.
so all these
Some
wars are
were producing maple, they were producing rubber. So you had the tires for the cars over there.
yeah. It's hard for me to believe that going to war for another country for their resources is cheaper than just buying it.
Ask that to all the guys who went to war. Tell them why they went to war. Ask them why they went to war. Why did the French people go over there to occupy the country, to cultivate themselves the trees and not buy that from the native? Why? Why did we do that? And why did the American come in when the French gave up? They came in 2 weeks, 6 weeks, I don't know, 6 months, I don't remember. America went in exactly at the same place. America went everywhere. And beside that, the very lousy pretext of fighting communism.
Right. Well, they either wanted the rubber. I don't know if they did do that. They certainly wanted the heroin trade, and it made a lot of money for the
You see,
armament
you always
industry.
have the world, my dear, make a lot of money. When it makes a lot of money, you may have war. Because the people with a lot of money are the people with a lot of armaments. And you always have war. There is no reason why all those wars for materials, you could not buy that material from the people. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? They were as intelligent as you. It's not because they were cultivating those trees. Come on. And why America went into that right away? Boom, right away. Then after, listen, America has never been able to fight communism because you don't fight an ID with guns. Communism was an ID. America has no ID. America only has gun and was fighting IDs with guns.
And so is that why you have no fear when you're advocating for the positive dialectic? Because they can't defeat an idea with a gun.
No, you cannot defeat an ID with guns. You can defeat an ID with IDs, not with guns. No way. Absolutely no way.
And so we need to find a way to distribute this information about the positive dialectic far and wide.
Exactly. And we need to beside that, as member of that organization, to give the example. I don't know how it can be realized, we are not at that point, but to give the permanent example of people who search, peace and explanation rather than fight. Fight never did by any. no fight brought anything basically substantial and positive. No one. You know, World War I, I'm just born after just World War I. World War I was a disaster, economically speaking, and for the future of Europe. And when Europe, Hitler has been a disaster for Europe, absolutely. And we still are on things that people still fight against each other for this, for that, for reasons which are basically are not reasons, are just bad reasons, if you want, for me.
All right, so we have probably about a few minutes left in this podcast. And I just want to shift gears a little bit because after last week's podcast, we were sitting around and talking, and you posed a question to me that you were going to think about. Do you remember what that question was?
No, dear.
I like throwing Michelle for a loop. You asked me, what do we do if we win?
Exactly, and I am still at the same problem, my dear, because so far it's put ideas on how to change the world, if you want, intellectually speaking. Now you have to do it materially speaking. And if tomorrow morning we have people who say, "Oh, we are with you," what do we do? What do we tell those people to do? To behave, to talk, to manufacture, to whatever to do? What do we ask from the people who will be with us? How do we organize, I'm sorry to say that, but how do we organize a complete revolution?
Without any violence.
Without any violence.
Well, that would be a good thing for people to write into us and say, do you have any ideas of how to forward this agenda?
Yeah, people should start to think, you want, in a different way, to think in that way of peace and collaboration. And the other one that we don't know is nevertheless a man exactly like us, even if he's from the other side of the world. And we must create such, if you want, an ambience of being nice with other people. You have to be nice with other people. Personally, nice to other people, and other people nice to the other people. But how do we do it practically speaking? So practically speaking is the next question. How can we do it? How, if you tell me tomorrow morning I am with you, what do I tell you to think, to do, in which way should you act? Should we create something? That is the big question.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop our podcast. Michelle, if people want to learn more, they can go to your website, which is?
It is no-penis.org.
Or com or net.
Or com or .com?
Is that com?
It's all of them.
It's all of them. Com, org, and
.net.
net, yeah.
And you would love to hear from people?
Oh, absolutely.
And
I would like people to tell me, yes, I agree with you, what shall I do? I would like somebody to tell me that.
They can
that
follow.
would oblige me to think, really.
They can follow you on Facebook, right? Do you have a Facebook?
I'm not a specialist on Facebook, but I have to start.
Well, certainly, please contact Michelle through that way. People can follow Radio Free Will on Twitter. Just search for Radio Free Will. You can always send your comments to info@radiofreewill.org. Please subscribe to this podcast and give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
You would like to, if you have a comment, put it in the comment section. Because we are trying to figure out how we're going to make this a better planet.
A better planet. For the first time, a planet where people can live without being enemies, but friends.
That's a good way to end the show. A very positive note. Thank you very much for joining us today, Michelle.
It's my pleasure, George. Thank you.